I would like to start to express my respect to all the leaders, scholars, academicians, and participants of this esteemed program. My name is Dr. Rahim Mirshahi. I would like to present to you the result of my research paper on the issue and the problem of drug addiction of two different cases. At the first look, it seems far from the theme of this gathering. But actually, drug and alcohol addiction among youth has caused so much problems for the individuals, families, and security and peace in communities. It is not the problem of one individual, but it affects the families and all the society. Drug and alcohol abuse is one of the complicated problems involving the life of individuals, their family, and the society. Addiction is the symptom of causal internal conflict, which may have different reasons. According to Dangerous Drugs Board in the Philippines, drugs are chemicals that affect a person in such a way as to bring about physiological, emotional, and behavioral change. One can be addicted to drug, alcohol, sex, food, gambling, internet, that can have a negative consequence due to abuse. Addiction is also classified as a progressive disease. This means that the habit will only intensify as time goes on if nothing or nobody intervenes with the addiction. Addiction causes great harm not only to the addict, but to their family, as we discussed, to their friends as well. Addicts usually experience personality change and lose the ability to interact with other people socially. They may have trouble staying in school or holding a job because of their constant pursuit of the addictive substance they crave. Because many addictions are very expensive, addicts may turn to crime in order to get the money they need quickly enough to support their habit. It is always much cheaper to focus on prevention rather than cure. The cure is in having healthy and happy families. Increased social problems are the result of increase in the number of disrupted and broken families. Dr. Sun Myung Moon emphasized that a complete and happy family must have parents who act as a protective shield around the home. A true family is the basis for forming a true society, true nation, and true world. A healthy relationship between parents and teenagers results in better and healthier behavior in the society. The quality of parent and child relationship has a significant role in youth well-being. Importance of the family on the life of the youth well-being and a healthy society is being emphasized by numerous scholars and researchers. Therefore, a nuclear family with strong ties among the members is the best guarantee to avoid social problems such as drug and alcohol abuse. However, today, marriages and families all over the world are under great stress. Their breakup is one of the fundamental causes of the problems currently afflicting our world. Janice Shaw Krause, a recognized authority on domestic, cultural, and women's issue, wrote in the Washington Times, just as relentless, powerful winds and waves pounding against a strong seawall can over time bring it down, the institution of the family today is beset by a perfect storm of hostile cultural influences and bad policies that threaten to cripple it, even destroy its existence. We know that many of these cultural influences are the result of the sexual revolution that started in 1960s from United States. To look at the statistics on this, we have seen a nearly 200% increase in divorce since just before the sexual revolution got started. This rose dramatically in the 60s and 70s. But even now, the divorce rate continues to hover between 40 to 50%. At the same time, we see the marriage rate declining. Since 1960, marriage rates have decreased by 40%. For the first time in history, less than half of adults are currently married in the United States. 20% have never been married, compared to 9% in 1960. At the same time, we see cohabitation has increased dramatically since 1960s, when there were just 500,000 cohabiting couples to 7.5 million in 2016, a 1,700% increase in America. We can expect that number to continue to grow in the future. The fact is that 67% of children of cohabiting couples witness their unmarried parents breaking up by the age of 12, compared to 25% of children of married parents. All in all, these warning statistics has caused rising concern among the leadership in different countries. Professor Kevin Wright, in his review of the literature for the Department of Justice, lists 21 other major studies that clearly show the link between parental conflict and delinquency. The lesson is clear. Conflict between parents hurts the child. The more frequent or intense the conflict, the more the child is hurt emotionally. In sharp contrast, tranquility and peace in the family and in the marriage help prevent delinquency. Patrick Fagan in Heritage Foundation emphasized that policymakers at last are coming to recognize the connection between the breakdown of American families and various social problems. So in the book, Discovering Real Me depicts the common cycle of addiction through these 5 stages. A young person is feeling pain or depression because of life and family problems at the first stage. In the second stage, he or she is looking for ways to feel better and forget his or her problem. Through choosing wrong friends who are already involved in drugs, he or she starts to be encouraged to take drugs. In the next stage, at first, the drugs seem to work because they dull the pain from which the person is trying to escape. So the person keeps taking the drug. But from this point, it often does not take long for the person to become addicted, because he or she develops a physical dependence on the substance. Now the person can think only about getting more of this drug just to function. And the last, at this stage, serious and deadly downward spiral begins. The person will sacrifice his or her family, friends, school, work, and community just to have drugs. Changed by drugs, both physically and mentally. The person is now an addict. This presentation studied 2 cases of drug addicts. The following cases are depicting the life of 2 different people whose lives were documented. Every year, hundreds of youth become the victim of such horrible destiny and lose their beautiful lives. They totally become a slave to drug and alcohol, which make them to become a menace and burden to their families and to the society. It is important that youth and families learn from their mistakes and make responsible choices in their life. The first case depicts the life of a girl called Kelly, who was addicted to crystal meth for 10 years. Repeated use of meth can cause violent behavior, mood swings, and psychosis. Psychosis can include paranoia, hearing sounds that are not there, and delusions, meaning the sensation of insects creeping on the skin also can happen. The paranoia can result in homicidal and suicidal thoughts. Meth can increase a person's sex drive and is linked to risky sexual behaviors and the transmission of infectious diseases such as HIV/AIDS. The second case is the life story of Claudia. She was addicted to heroin. According to National Institution on Drug Abuse, short-term effects of heroin include a rush of good feelings and clouded thinking. For the first several hours after taking heroin, people want to sleep, and their heart rate and breathing slow down. When the drug wears off, people may feel a strong urge to take more. Other effects include feeling sick and itchy. Heroin can slow or stop the breathing, sometimes so much that a person dies. We call it a fatal heroin overdose. Sharing used needles to inject heroin can cause HIV/AIDS and hepatitis, and going into a coma is the time that drug abuser goes into a deep state of unconsciousness and may not wake up and may die. After studying the two cases, the following themes are highlighted, which needs to be considered. What we learn from these two cases. One of the highlights of the two cases was having a nervous breakdown in childhood as the result of their parents' divorce. Studies confirmed that disruption in family, as evidenced by divorce, lead to a number of social problems such as juvenile delinquency, prostitution by young ladies, and drug abuse by youth. On the other hand, the study indicated that teenagers in two-parent families who reported a more positive relationship with their fathers, for instance, by agreeing with the statement, "I really enjoy spending time with him," were subsequently less likely to engage in delinquent acts. In both cases, parents of Claudia and Kelly separated in childhood, and they suffered from lack of parental supportive figures, which clearly confirm as one of the major causes of the addiction in these two cases. It is mentioned that when Kelly was 9, her parents separated. Her father mentioned it as a sad day. They told her that they were going to separate. The moment their daughter heard it, she just collapsed to the floor, and her father picked her up. She just broke down and cried. She was having a nervous breakdown. Similarly, Claudia's father left the family shortly after she was born. She had a good relationship with her mom, but when she was 8, her mother married another man. Claudia said that her mother was affectionate, very caring, but her stepfather was not. He never smiled and never told her that he loved her. They could not have a strong and loving relationship with each other. Claudia felt very lonely and out of place. Children of divorce or even single parents are much more at risk than children of married parents. They tend to have more emotional problems. They are more likely to be victims of abuse and neglect, experiencing lack of love, a sense of instability and insecurity. This can lead to feelings of resentment and anger. This can also play out in delinquent behavior and eventually crime. They are also more likely to drop out of school and more likely to live in poverty. In fact, 2/3 of children living in poverty today are in single-parent families. They are also more likely to abuse sex, alcohol, and drugs. Another problem which was highlighted in these two cases was lack of good communication in family. Miscommunication in the family of Kelly was obvious. Kelly's grandmother added that her mother and Kelly were arguing all the time, arguing about curfew, argued about what she was doing, where she was going. Her mother added that I would say up, she would say down. I would say white, she would say black. Another important problem in these two cases was the lack of parental supervision. In both cases, Kelly and Claudio's family lacked parental supervision as the result of family breakdown. Kelly's brother said, when she got older, my mom just did not pay attention what she was doing. Drifted away, she got cut off with the wrong people who were using drugs. It was the same situation for Claudia. At 15, she ran away from home and moved in with her biological father. But Claudia's father was a drug addict. He was always intoxicated and didn't take care of her at all. He was drunkard every night. It shows inability of mother and stepfather in effective supervision. The study remarks that active and involved monitoring of children's whereabouts and friendships becomes particularly important as preteens begin to spend more time away from their home and assume more independence. Even though with adolescents who are more independent, parents have less opportunity to control their youngster's peer. Nevertheless, parents should remain involved and interested in their youngster's social life. They should be knowledgeable about their child's friends, get to know them, meet them, and ask questions about social activities and stay informed. And finally, getting involvement of the cases with wrong friends was very obvious in both cases. In both cases of Claudia and Kelly, they were both meeting friends and living with partners who were addicted. Kelly got caught up with the wrong people. She was hanging around with people who were using drugs. Her father did not know that she was meeting people and taking drugs. Unfortunately, Claudia also suffered from the same situation and was under influence of her addicted father. That year, Claudia smoked crack with her father. The reason was that she wanted to be close to her father and feel needed. Using drugs was a way that she could receive her father's attention and love. Several years later, she used heroin with her father. Research done by Dangerous Drugs Board of Philippines indicated that continuing to use drugs is blamed on the influence of friends who themselves are using drugs. This was reported by the respondents from 11 out of 13 regions. The study continued that a strong family foundation is a tool against drug abuse, and the youth or individual will not seek the company of peers if he or she is happy at home. In conclusion, it is obvious that strong and responsible families consist of father and mother with loving relationship among members of the family is the only guarantee to eliminate addiction in every society. We discern that in both cases of addicts, a similar pattern is observed. Firstly, they experience separation and divorce between parents. Family breakdown and problematic husband and wife relationship was the underlying cause of nervous breakdown, which served as a fertile soil for addiction. Secondly, parent and child communication was weak or broken in both cases. Lack of effective communication skills between parents and children caused the child to be reluctant to share their problems with parents. Parents were not aware of the difficulties of their children and came to know about the problem when already the child was involved with addiction. Talking and communicating with children is the best way to understand them. One-on-one talking led the children to release their stress and concerns in a positive and safe way. Families may not be aware of the benefit of family practices such as family dinner, watching a good movie together, family day, family reunions. These events can strengthen the family ties, and studies suggest that having dinner together as a family at least 4 times a week has positive effects on child development. Family dinners have been linked to a lower risk of obesity, substance abuse, eating disorders, and an increased chance of graduating from high school. Thirdly, parental supervision was weak in both cases of addicts. Lack of active parental supervision on children's whereabouts and outside activities was the reason that parents were not able to identify the children's involvement in drug abuse addiction. Finally, negative peer pressure had a strong influence on worsening addiction. Lack of a strong family ties, effective communication, and parental supervision was the reason that children were weak against pressure of the friends who were involved in drug and alcohol abuse. Parents' active involvement in children's social life and showing interest in knowing their whereabouts and friends is essential to protect the children in society. Loving relationship in the family is the best tool against negative influence of peers on the children. So let's discuss, how did rampant family breakdown start and what is the solution? Historically, in modern age, the growing trend of family disruption became more rampant from the second half of the 20th century. The sexual revolution was a watershed event in not only American history, but world history as well, bringing forth ramifications that we continue to witness today. Since then, the traditional norm of sex have weakened, leading to an era of expanded sexual freedom as well as consequences. During 1960s, several free sex movements speeded the weakening of the family structure and contributed to the rising trend of the social problems such as teenage pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections, and drug and alcohol addictions. Individualism and materialism have become the popular life philosophy among many youth, families, and nations. As it was discussed in this study, family disruption is the main cause of drug and alcohol addiction in these two cases. Strengthening the family is the fundamental solution to the problem of drug and alcohol addiction. More than any time, the world is in need of solution to the rising trend of collapsing the structure of the family as the most important institution of the society. But it is interesting to mention that parallel to the disruptive family breakdown philosophy centering on free sex culture, individualism and materialism, there is another worldwide movement founded by Dr. Sun Myung Moon and Hak Ja Han Moon, which has been promoting family values revival since 1960s. Family values movement was started by Dr. Sun Myung Moon and Hak Ja Han Moon as a counter-free sex movement during 1960s and have been growing rapidly since then. Abstinence before the marriage and fidelity in the marriage is the core teaching of Dr. Sun Myung. Concerning the true meaning of marriage, they always emphasize that it is most important to teach young people about the sanctity and the value of the marriage. Marriage is not a simple matter of a man and a woman of marriageable age coming together and combining their two lives. Marriage is something built on the basis of sacrifice. Love is not a man and a woman meeting each other and having a good time. Love is offering up your life. If you marry, you must do so on the basis of your determination that your life is for your spouse. Dr. Samia Moon and Haq Jahan Moon, by organizing big and small gatherings around the world and continuous education intended to remind leaders about the importance of maintaining family values and strengthening this institution of the family as the cornerstone of love and peace in the world. Dr. Samia Moon also particularly invested many years in USA, and in his autobiography mentions that the reason I went to all this trouble to go to America was to fight against the dark forces that had caused America's moral degradation. They emphasized that only forming God-centered families can stop the social disruption as the result of teenage pregnancy, HIV/AIDS, and drug and alcohol addiction of the youth. So I would like to conclude with a quote from Mother Teresa. What can you do to promote world peace? She asked. Go home and love your family. With this, I would like to conclude that this study revealed that it is critically important to discover the fundamental roots of the problem. Prevention is always the best cure. I hope this study was able to draw light into the fundamental root of the social problems in society. When the home breaks down, parents cease to function as protective shield for children. This is the main principal reason for teenagers being trapped into the deadly addiction and other social problems. Thank you very much for listening and your kind attention.